Lindsey Baker with the Action Hour. I'm back today with Craig C. Downer. Craig is an ecologist, and he is also very concerned about the wild horses and burros. He's an author. In fact, he just came out with a new book we're going to talk about. But the main subject that we want to get into is the plan to restore America's Mustangs and Burros through reserve design and rewilding. And that's a two-part plan that Craig is going to tell us all about. But Craig, thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah, it's great being here, Lindsey. You're looking great.
Thank you. And before we get into all of this, I want to ask you, first and foremost, what is going on with the roundups? What's the latest that you can share?
It's terrible. They're rounding up thousands of horses from their legal areas, and they're dying. It's extremely hot. It's over even 100 degrees, over 90, even 100, and many of them are suffering terribly. Some of them are being mangled, their bones are being broken, and they're having foals. Mares are having foals. They're putting down animals that they shouldn't be. It's just outrageous, and they're doing
Craig, for our audience that doesn't know, let's give them a little bit of the background for people that have just come in on this. There's actually an act that was enacted by Congress way back in the 1800s. And you're going to tell us about that and tell us how the BLM is breaking the rules and why is that happening? How is that happening? If you would just fill us all in on that.
Well, the Wild Free-Roaming Horse and Burros Act was passed in 1971. So it completed 50 years last year in December. It had a glowing send-off from President Richard Nixon. But they're supposed to have these legal areas on the BLM and Forest Service lands. I mean, it should have been at least around 54 million acres on the BLM and the Forest Service lands. But over the years, they've managed to zero out the wild horses from most of their legal areas. And they continue to do that. And the law says that the wild horse and burros shall have the principal resources in their legal areas. But they do all the opposite. They give most of the forage resources and the water to cattle and sheep ranchers or big open pit miners that squander vast majority of water and even poison it. And they draw down the water tables and they end up drying a lot of springs up. So it's an intolerable situation, and it's just like the broken treaties to the Native Americans, or it's like the betrayal of the buffalo or the grizzly bear or any of the wonderful species that occur here. And we've got to stand up and restore this law.
I was going to ask you, Craig, to go into a little bit now about how it impacts not only on the animals, but on the humans. Like, talk a little bit about, give them a little overview of how it affects the land and what has been happening over time, the degradation and deforestation, and how it contributes to so many things, wildfires, etc. Can you jump into that a little bit for them?
Yeah,
we got a lot to cover.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the horses and burros are deeply rooted natives here. The fossil record proves that, and so does the genetic examination proves that they've been here for many millions of years, and they fill a very important role in the ecosystem. They balance out the cloven hoof ruminant digestive herbivores. That is the bovids and the cervids. So they're needed.
Hang on a minute, Craig. Hang on a minute. Explain to our audience what you just said in just layman's terms. So you're talking about the cloven foot, that would be the sheep and the cows. So can you just explain that a little more? Because you're kind of going over our heads here.
Yeah, it really pays to study biology and evolution and ecology, at least to get the basics down. And
Yeah.
and I know these people that are running the land. I mean, they know these things, but they deliberately ignore the greater truth of the story, and it's just wrong. And that's why I
But
wrote the book.
the
I
the
I
point is that the cows, when the cows and the sheep are present, it's a much different environment and impact on the environment. Tell why, because I don't think that was clearly just
yeah,
explained.
yeah. It isn't the cows and sheep's fault because they would adapt if left on their own resources, and the ecosystem would balance out. It's people who are over manipulating the ecosystem and forcing too many cattle and sheep in too little of an area, and it's degrading the West. It's destroying the soils, destroying the water supplies and the aquifers and the watersheds. What I call the living sponge. Now, the equids, the horses and burros, are a great balance to that because they restore soils. They are greater seed dispersers, and they have a different digestive system. And they disperse their grazing pressure over larger areas. So they're needed for balance. And there are many studies that show how they actually help the cloven hoof ruminants. And if you go on to my recent article here, 50 years, they have 50 years on, here's how America's wild horses can be saved. I explain in succinctly, and I'll give you the link to that. And there's also my book, The Wild Horse Conspiracy here.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm going to be sharing right now your website here. Let's see if we can get that up there. Oops, it's not letting me do it at the moment. Let me just remove that. But we will be sharing those links. That's the wildhorseconspiracy.org. You can go to that site and get all the information that you need. Now, let me show you, at the courtesy of Tina Wooten, I believe that is the name of the person that took this footage, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, that we have
That's
some
right.
footage
Yeah.
of them in the wild. Let's look at the horses in the wild here for a moment. They're really short. Okay, so are you saying that they could live that way with it? Didn't look like it was all burnt out and everything. It looked like they were okay and they were living within the,
Yeah.
ecosystem well.
Yeah.
Are you saying that if we left them alone, that's the way it would restore to?
Yeah, absolutely. If you left the plants and animals alone, they would heal the earth. But it's us people that continue tinkering around with it, think we know it all, but it's just based on selfishness and greed and a kind of an insane fixation on unlimited growth, which will murder life on earth and is murdering life on earth. But the horses are wonderful healers, and many studies have proven that they restore soils, they restore the vegetative biodiversity, and they help many other animals because they're ancient presences here that have developed many mutualistic relationships with many different species. And so people have to pull in their horns or it's going to be too late. And I proved in my study last summer how they are superior carbon sequesters and also greatly reduce the dry, flammable vegetation. And that's why I'm proposing this new bill called Rome Rod. It stands for Restore Our American Mustangs and Burros Through Reserve Design and Rewilding. And I have several senators and representatives now that are interested because they want to do the right thing rather than just listen to all the lies and go along with all the destruction. So we're gonna get it accomplished. And I was on this Equid Collaborative International Wild Horse Solutions on Thursday night, and Anthony Marr wants to help, and Barbara Moore, and a number of people that are very intelligent and well educated. And we're going to do it because it's the right thing and because the future of life depends on our doing this. And the horses are wonderful healers, and they can no longer be ignored.
So, folks, if you're just tuning in, I want to jump in here because we're already almost 20 minutes into the broadcast and let you know that I am here with Craig C. Downer, who is an ecologist and an author, and he just came out with a new book we'll be talking about shortly. But what we really want to have you guys take some action on right now is this plan signing. Craig, tell them, we're at your website again here. Tell folks that just tuning in and folks that might have to get off, what can they do? What can they do to help? Let's tell them now.
Please go on to my website and see this urgent need for reserve design and rewilding to restore America's wild horse and burros. This obeys the true spirit and intent of the law, and it's absolutely essential that we restore this law. And it's compatible with several other laws, including the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act and Administrative Policy Act, National Historical Preservation Act, and several other laws that it's so needed. And these horses are superior carbon sequesters. And they're superior
Craig,
at reducing dry tinder
right,
that starts the fire, the catastrophic wildfires. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here for a moment because I'm sure our audience is asking this question. If all of these different acts were enacted and all of them have been violated, how does this happen? And who do we hold accountable? Now, in terms of, tell us that, please.
Well, it's,
who do we see? Who do we go to talk about this?
I mean, I would say basically this stems from the exploiters of the public lands who do not want to share. And because they have a lot of money and they derive fortunes from exploiting the public lands, they use their money and their influence to buy the politicians and to get their corrupt policies being enacted in the regulations of the government agencies, which is actually a corruption. So the common people have to stand up for what's right, and we have to really scream about this because it's threatening life on Earth. And the wild horses are a wonderful quality of life issue, and this is a general public issue for the common good. There are greater things in life than money and luxury, artificial luxury. There's a well-functioning ecosystem, and people have to learn to restore that and live in harmony with it. Our lives depend on this. Our future generations really depend on this.
It's absolutely absurd because if you think about it, no matter how much money you have, when there's no earth left. I mean, we see these like wildfires on the news every day. People are terrified, but they still are not making the connection between how animal agriculture, cattle ranching, sheep herding, things that we can do without, with all the new products that we have on the market. They're even coming out now with ways to make cellular meat from animals without using the animal. And if you want to see that show, that's on Unchained TV on this Facebook streaming. And also don't forget to download UnChained TV streaming app for yourselves, and you'll learn a lot about all of these issues. But back to the main issue here, this is criminal what's happening because it is threatening our very lives. And as you say, no matter how much money,
I mean,
no matter how.
it's the
Now,
most
Craig, before we
serious
move
situation.
on, sorry to cut in there. Before you move on, I want to just stay on this subject. You talk about species. I know people, they get a smirk on their face, but the difference between and how that affects the environment, we want to show some concrete evidence of how this is true, what we're saying. So let's watch this from another interview I did.
Yeah, they contribute so many things that are positive. It makes sense because they co-evolved here for not just thousands, but for millions of years, as did the whole family here in North America and elsewhere too, but especially North America. And consequently, when they return here, many hundreds and even thousands of species of plants and animals respond to them because they remember all the beautiful relationships they had over the millions of years. You know, they actually enhance ecosystems. And what I say, a lot of this has to do with their digestive system, because they have a different digestive system than the so-called ruminant cloven-hoofed animals like cow, sheep, and deer. These animals, what they call the parasodactyl, which includes the horse family, the rhino family, and the tapir family, have a different digestive system. It's similar, but it's significantly different. And they have what they call a cecal digestion, post-gastric cecal rather than pre-gastric rumen digesting fermentation. They have this, they have the cecum as the main fermentation organ. And they don't as thoroughly digest what they ingest. So consequently, their droppings, which we have a picture of, organically intact, and they take a bit longer to decompose. But that's a good thing because it actually enriches the humus content of the soil, and also passes a lot of seeds that are intact and that otherwise are killed in the ruminant cow or deer or sheep.
Well, Craig, I could see there that you have done a lot of scientific research, study on this. I understand you've been doing this for over 40 years. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That you've been studying?
Yeah, and I did a study last year in Arizona, and that's going to coming out real soon, and it deals with this very subject. I did ecological transects, and I did germination experiments, and I showed how the horse feces greatly encourages the vegetation, even in fairly dry areas, whereas the cow feces poisons the land. Nothing springs up from those domestic cattle feces.
And this is critical because it affects wildfires. Big subject right now. So
and when you have healthy soils. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you have healthy soils, you're absorbing more water. So you're increasing what you call the aquifer, the streams, the lakes. And consequently, when there's lightning strikes, it doesn't take hold. But if you have a dry ecosystem and you have dry cow patties, and it bursts into flame, and then the forests and the bushes and the grasses burn up. And that's what's happening. So we've got to recognize, we've got to learn how to respect nature, respect the horses, and respect their natural home, their ecosystem or habitat. It's essential we do this and not just be thinking about ourselves. I think too many people are manipulated by their creature comforts. And they're kind of led around by the nose by their gut appetites and their people that flatter them and all that. I mean, this is leading to the destruction of life. And I really do advocate, as you say, for vegetarianism, especially veganism. And in so many ways, our consumer habitats are killing the earth. like all the plastic that we buy, and it's poisoning the oceans or poisoning the soils. We have to stop this. I mean, this is the real purpose of government. The purpose of government isn't to cater to every slob that wants to make a bunch of money and live like a slob. It's about, hey, let's do the right thing, and let's face the real challenges and make the real changes that we need to make. Let's be people of conscience.
Yeah, let's not lose this precious earth and resources and beautiful animals, because once we lose them, it's no going back. It's no going back, and it's tragic.
We could leave a sterile tombstone here on planet Earth.
Yes,
we could.
Let's just show you. You have a GoFundMe page. I wanted to share with the audience all of Craig's links, as usual, with all my shows will be listed, pinned to the top of this post, and you can click and take action. I believe that we are also providing them with a link of how they can contact their representatives, because that's a big part of it. I was speaking to Elena Diva Prophet, who was going to come on with us, and she's going to still do a show. And she says, she's an expert on the adoption slaughterhouse pipeline. We're going to get into all of that. And so this issue is so profound and far-reaching and horrific. But she said, which is a very optimistic and positive note, that they are running scared, meaning the powers that be and these phony adoption operations that are going on in this whole slaughterhouse pipeline, because the public, as you say, Craig, has to speak out. And another way, I'm going to segue a little bit here because I want to get into your book, and we'll get back to this a little bit more before we end, but I want to segue into your book. A lot of ways that activists do speak out, of course, is signing petitions, protesting, etc., but using their creativity. And that's what you did, Craig, with this book. So I want you now to talk about Wonder Streams of the Soul, this new book that you're launching, and tell us a little bit about the book and all of it.
Yeah.
Explain it.
This book communicates the great beauty of nature and how it relates to the higher spiritual reality of life. And it's a very profound book, and I've always been a great respecter of language, and I believe we should treat language with as an art, and that can reveal greater truth. But a lot of my book stresses the need for reverence for life and for recognizing the relationship of all species as being related and all beings. And if you'd like me, I can read a little poem here that I
Sure,
wrote
please
about.
do.
Okay. It's called Poem to Wild Horses, and it came to me in 1995.
Lovely.
I write a poem about the wild horse because there's a lot of feeling here, albeit much long suffering and abuse by man, most gruesome. Yet too, vast, wide open spaces and many lives lived out with grace and in joyful freedom. 'Tis a saga of the Old West, and I believe the new. This story is this story of the wild horse, this enduring, wind-drinking, runner of desert and plain, as alas, a very time. His story is one with yours and mine. May he reach far upon this earth plane. For 'tis a saga of what this land is yet to be. of a destiny yet unfulfilled, when man and horse in freedom live, once again with mutual respect. That's a poem that
Thank
came
you.
to me spontaneously when I was
So
out in the desert.
beautiful, really.
Thank you.
And this book is available. Yeah, talk
Right.
a little bit. So
So
you
it
wrote
was
these
just-
poems over time?
Yeah, it's go back a number of years, but a lot of them I wrote just recently in the last few years. So I'm a member of the Nevada Poetry Society, and they've helped me a lot with learning different forms of poetry. But I have been able to memorize some of my poems, which I can recite, and that's a great ability. So I'm going to be doing more of that. And I also have sort of philosophical essays. They're related to conservation or all kinds of things, spiritual reality, and my knowledge as a scientist as well. Concerning
I love the
the
fact that you
ecosystem.
blend both the science and the spiritual together, and that you can make that connection. And it's going to be wonderful to hear you speak on that. I just want to show here your website that you can go to for the book. Tell us the name of the website, please. I think I have it here.
It's just called ccdownerbooks.com.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks, you can go to this site here and pick up a copy of Craig's book.
It has some beautiful illustrations of it. Not some of them are my photos, but others are I identified on the World Wide Web to illustrate the points. It's a tremendous variety in this book, and it's really a wonderful book. It's taken me 3 years to get it perfected now. So I'm looking forward to doing book fairs and bookstore events and just in general to recite my poems and present the ideas. I deal a lot with this central concept that I call the spiritual evolution, that's related to a lot of religions and philosophies that seem to be kind of innate in me.
So it's just sort of from your own experiences, blending all the things. It's almost like an Emerson, where I'm not saying you have the same philosophy. I don't know your philosophy.
Yeah, no, I have a lot in common with the transcendentalists.
But it's got a lot to do with nature, etc., and learning from nature. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Craig, I do want to. Absolutely, I want to show a couple more of the horses in the wild clips for folks again.
Come up on the hillside, we'll have a time. He'll bring the kisses, honey.
Wow.
Well,
That's where I was last
incredible
year.
to know that. It's just so sad when you think about the fact that they're peacefully living like that, and then these helicopters come in, dive in on them, they break their bones. The colts are separated from their mother. These beautiful animals are put into captivity with no room in the holding pens. From what I've learned from doing stories on this, the whole system is horrific and corrupt. And we will keep covering this. We will keep talking about this. We will not stop. And we need your help.
To.
Craig,
they're depending on us.
Craig, we only
Yeah.
have a few minutes left, like 10 minutes, and I'm going to give the floor to you to talk about what you think you want people to
Oh,
know and to do.
okay.
So go ahead.
Yes, I'm launching this Rome Rod, which stands for Restore Our American Mustangs and Burros through Reserve Design and Rewilding. And it's true to the true spirit and intent of the Wild Free Roaming Horses and Burros Act. And if you go on my website on that recent alert, I explain what needs to happen. But we need to contact our representatives and senators, as well as our local governors and senators and representatives at state and local levels, and really get some support for this, because it's really getting the law back to what should have happened originally, and to undo a lot of the errors that have occurred. And it's more important than ever to restore these horses and burros, because they actually, contrary to the lies, they actually restore the endangered species. They restore the soils. And we've got to stop scapegoating them. Scapegoating is a very horrible, dishonorable activity to engage in, especially when it's based on backwardness and blind traditions and a failure to examine oneself and one's way of life. And it's very unhealthy. So this is going to require a lot of courage, but we can actually sleep well because we're obeying our higher conscience. And to get my book, Wonder Streams of the Soul, because it's actually a very inspiring book. And it's based on a lot of inspirations that have come to me over the years.
Well, Craig, I am going to take you up on that and purchase your book for sure. I'd love to learn more from you. I know you've got a wealth of knowledge in your head. Your heart is in the right place. I know how you spend your time. We've been friends for a while, and through doing interviews, I met you, and I've known you now for a couple of years, and I know you're a great person. You're out in nature all the time. You're photographing the horses. You're documenting what's going on, like so many other wonderful people that are out there, giving the horses names, giving them a voice, and trying to get people to wake up and see how many sports t-shirts do you need? How many expensive sneakers do you need? How about getting out in nature with your family? How about taking some of that money and donating to restore the wildlife for your future generations? I mean, people need to change what they're doing and wake up, because the most valuable things are being overlooked.
Yeah, we need to live conscientiously, to really consider everything we do, how we live, and all the wonderful possibilities there are to live in harmony with nature, or as I call the great rest of life. That is so fulfilling when you get attuned with all the plants and animals. It's like going up into heaven. It really is. And I've been studying recently the Taoist way of life, which is to be attuned to all the different presences and to live in a sensitive manner. And they have great advice on how to be healthy rather than manipulated by people that want you to live in a way which is really degrading.
Well, I think people are waking up to many, many different spiritual practices, historical practice, cultural practices, and taking from each of them and respecting them and taking a new look at them. And I think that's something that has to happen in our schools and our American schools, where we have to go back and look at our curriculum, et cetera. But, one step at a time. Let's try to get the awareness out there about the horses. So everyone, please share out this video. Go to Craig's site, thewildhorseconspiracy.org. Check out again his book. Here's the CC Downer books.com is the website for that. Craig, thanks so much for being on. Please come back. Tell us more what's going on. I know you're
Oh,
diligently out there
oh,
keeping an eye on things and communicating with other activists. So please come back and talk to us again. We really enjoy having you
I
on.
sure will, Lindsay. It's been a great pleasure. You're looking great.
Oh, thank you, Craig. Bye bye, everyone. Thanks
Bye.
for tuning in.